Uganda's president calls striking doctors enemies of the state. What are health workers up against? We take you inside the country's ailing healthcare system. Race for survival. Is the northern white rhino on the brink of a comeback? And from an island off West Africa to the Kennedy Center in Washington, how this Cape Verdean singer is taking North America by storm. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCorry. This is Africa 54. We begin our broadcast tonight in Uganda, where the government has called the country's doctors and professionals selfish and patriotic and enemies of the people after calling for a sit-down strike in 2017 demanding pay and improved working conditions. Halima Thumani spent a night at an Ugandan hospital and shows us the challenges doctors face.
Lack of adequate drugs and other medical supplies and understaffing, while the few health workers have to give their all to handle patients. Uganda's doctor-to-patient ratio is estimated at 1 to 25,700, yet the World Health Organization recommends one physician per 1,000 people. Nakaseke Hospital, 136 kilometers northwest of Kampala, serves 5 neighboring districts. In the 50-bed postnatal ward, 22 mothers and 14 babies are being watched over by one senior nurse and doctor. Mariam Kabuzi, a new mother of twins, was separated from her babies because the hospital does not have a neonatal intensive care unit or several prescribed drugs. Kalunji Yunus is Mariam's father.
There
is not enough medicine. They gave her 3 different prescriptions, but the hospital was only able to give us 2, so I had to buy the 3rd from an outside clinic.
In the operating room, a mother is suffering from obstructed labor. With just 2 doctors and a nursing assistant, an emergency cesarean section operation gets underway and will last for about an hour. While there is an anesthetic machine, the lack of halothane gas to put patients to sleep during the operation renders it idle and sealed. Working with little, the doctors struggle through the night operations, knowing they could lose the patients. But against all odds, the operations end well, and 2 girls are born within a space of 3 hours.
Ideally, a theatre should have the surgeon, an assistant, an anesthetist, a rotating nurse, and then another aid for instruments. If you lack something, you can send for. But we were working on the 2. And it's not by choice, but by the number of staff that we can organize. So ideally, staffing is still a problem. You can see how I'm sweating, there is no AC, even if it's at night, but you can really feel how hot it can be, especially when you are working.
The 2018-2019 financial year saw the Ministry of Health budget increased to $594 million from $470 million. Slight increases were given to local government health centers for primary health care, wages and medical and health supplies. But Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary Dr. Diana Twine argues the lack of adequate medical supplies can be successfully handled if the incidence of disease is reduced.
So our target now as a sector is to reduce on the disease burden, to make sure that all the preventable diseases are reduced. Once we reduce, then the money will be saved to cater for, lifestyle. And even the lifestyle, that's why we're talking about sickle cell, that's why we're talking about diabetes, hypertension, even those non-communicable diseases.
But the situation remains dire in these hospitals, where one could mistake an operating room for a slaughterhouse. Halima Thumani for VOA News, Nakaseke, Uganda.
Well, a Ugandan soldier was killed in clashes on a lake straddling the border with Democratic Republic of Congo. Officials from both sides have confirmed the incident, in which 1 Ugandan and 2 Congolese were also wounded. Congolese officials say the 2 navies exchanged gunfire in Congolese waters of Lake Edward on Thursday. Uganda's army spokesman, however, says Ugandan forces were attacked by unknown gunmen on their own side of the border. The two countries have sporadic tense relationship, with the Congolese accusing Ugandan forces of encroaching on their territory and Ugandan authorities saying the Congolese do not do enough to stamp out the militia activity near the border. South Sudan's government and the opposition have reported to have reached a deal on security arrangements during talks in the Sudanese capital Khartoum. The agreement could end nearly 5 years of civil war. The pact is expected to be signed Friday. According to the Sudanese state news agency SUNA, the deal covers 4 major issues: clearing population centers of armed forces, a time frame to unify and reorganize South Sudan's military, setting up a joint security committee, and deciding on areas where forces are to be based. Last month, President Kiir signed a framework agreement with opposition leader Riek Machar in Khartoum, providing for a ceasefire, paving the way for talks towards a full treaty. However, the opposition immediately rejected some elements of the accord, and both sides have accused each other of violating the truce, trading blame for attacks that killed 18 civilians. Ethiopia has fired 5 prison officials amid the release of a report alleging brutal human rights violations at a notorious prison. The 5 officials dismissed Thursday include the head of the federal prison system. The firing came just hours before US-based Human Rights Watch released a report highlighting abuses at a facility dubbed Jail Ogaden in Ethiopia's eastern Somali region. The report includes testimony from inmates describing horrific incidents of torture, solitary confinement, and a lack of access to medical care and even food. The regional security force, the Leo Police, is implicated in the report for carrying out the abuses. At least 3 suspected poachers who were apparently hunting for rhinos have been mauled to death and eaten by lions on a game reserve in South Africa, according to the owner. The men entered the Sibuyu Game Reserve, similar to the one seen here on the southeast coast, armed with a high-powered rifle and an axe in the early hours of Monday, and were found dismembered the following day. Reserve owner Nick Fox told AFP the poachers strayed into a big pride of lions, so they didn't have too much time. Forensics police were on the scene conducting tests on the remains of the victims. Now, when Sudan, the last male northern white rhino, died in March, hopes for a revival of the subspecies were crushed. But as VOA's Seri Witorsky explains, the magnificent creatures might not go the way of the dodo.
Although there are only 2 northern white rhinos left alive in the world, their kind might be on the brink of a comeback with the help of science. In a recently published study in Nature Communications, the scientists used frozen sperm from 3 deceased northern white rhinos to artificially fertilize southern white rhino eggs outside the womb. They allowed the eggs to grow until they had reached the blastocyst stage. At this point, they froze the developing eggs to preserve until a suitable surrogate mother could be found.
So the 2 females sleeping down are the 2 northern female white rhinos left on the planet. It's a mother and a daughter, and the one facing us is the southern white rhino. The one which is awake is the southern white rhino, of which we might use as a surrogate mother.
While the 2 types of white rhinos may look similar, the northern and southern subspecies differ in several physical aspects. For example, the northern white rhino has hairier ears, and the larger southern white rhino has grooves between its ribs.
So we hope that within 3 years we will have been able to create the first northern white rhino baby, so we can let it live with the 2 remaining northern white rhinoceros females in Kenya.
Thankfully, the rhinos are still genetically close enough that scientists can use southern white rhino eggs to create hybrid animals. The last 2 northern white rhinos are no longer fertile, so scientists could not create a pure northern white rhino embryo. In the future, researchers hope to create artificial northern white rhino eggs from saved reproductive cells to help ensure genetic diversity.
Only 2 infertile females are still living on our planet, but with this technology approach, we are capable to create a genetic viable population in the next decade.
With the help of southern white rhinos, the most abundant rhino in the world, perhaps scientists can preserve these massive mammals. Sadie Witkowski, VOA News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is set to arrive in Britain on July the 12th in his first trip as president to one of America's oldest allies. But it is not a state visit. As Henry Ridgewell reports from London, the strength of the so-called special relationship is being tested, and thousands are preparing to take to the streets to demonstrate against the visit.
Britain is basking in a heat wave, and the political temperature is rising. The coming visit of Donald Trump has energized those opposed to the US president's views on issues like immigration and climate change.
I'll be out there protesting. I'm not really a demonstration sort of person, but I feel quite strongly that he shouldn't be welcomed.
I don't particularly agree with a lot of things he's done, but at the same time I think he'd done well for America, I think. So, yeah, I think he should come, I guess, as an ally.
It would be good for him to come, for him to see what the reaction of the people here.
Protests are planned in London, although they'll be kept well away from the president.
We don't want a tiny but vocal and quite aggressive minority to be portrayed as the wider British population.
President Trump and British Prime Minister Theresa May got off to a good start at the White House in 2017, but the so-called special relationship is now being tested.
The retweeting of the far-right video produced a storm of conversation in Parliament, protests on the streets, and he's coming here right on the back of the tariffs that have been lodged against Europe, on the back of pulling out of the Iran deal, and most perhaps recently the very bad press coverage of his policy of separating families, parents from their children.
Donald Trump's visit comes at a critical time for Britain as it leaves the European Union. The government sees a strong economic and security relationship with the United States as crucial to a successful future outside the EU.
In an era of Brexit, we need to be building alliances around the globe, and there is no stronger alliance that we've ever had than the United States of America.
But does President Trump attach the same priority to Britain?
I suspect that there will be an affirmation of America's relationship with the UK, of a commitment to, some sort of trade deal. But I suspect we'll see very little after he leaves. They'll return to some of the topics that we would expect: the security, cooperation, NATO.
A NATO summit in Brussels immediately precedes Trump's London visit, and afterward he is scheduled to fly to Helsinki to meet his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, on July 16th.
It's right in between two other visits that are much more important, frankly, to the American president.
As thousands of protesters prepare to take to the streets, the optics could play a big part in how it is perceived on both sides of the Atlantic. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Still to come on Africa 54, the impact of the World Cup on the local Russian economy. But first, a look at Friday's headlines.
So if they put more taxes, then I will be limited.
Så er frisk, så færre klar på.
Of several multinational and indigenous
Well, by the time the World Cup is over, 64 matches will have taken place over 12 venues in 11 Russian cities. For many people in Nizhny Novgorod, one of the soccer venues, the month-long event has been the biggest party in town for decades. Viewers Mariama Diallo reports.
For many, the experience of meeting people from all over the world has been one of the highlights of the World Cup events. Since the tournament opened, 21-year-old waitress Lena Tikhomirova has served customers from South Korea to Argentina. Something she says has changed her life.
It changed a lot in my relation to foreigners. I made a lot of new friends. I practice my English. It's really cool. It seems to me that the city changed too. This place is more cheerful now. It is lively.
62-year-old taxi driver Gennady says for decades the city has been a center for military and nuclear research. Today, it's very different.
It is really good, a lot of tourism, and a lot of driving to hotels, the airport, and the railway station. People come and go. I meet them, I drive them. Everyone is very polite. After the matches, they sit and drink beer. And then they are very cheerful in the car.
Street musicians Vadim Arkhipov and Konstantin Pekyonov have enjoyed every bit of it, but they are saddened the party must eventually come to an end.
We will never see something like this in our life again. This is the celebration of all celebrations. So many people, so many foreigners, so many customs, and so much for people to enjoy. It's great. I'm simply happy.
And while most people who live in this Russian city have enjoyed the World Cup festivities, it's been a life-changing event for at least one resident. Lena Tikhomirova says as much as she loves her country, she's now considering studying abroad to learn about new cultures and to make new friends. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Well, the next 6 years are going to be quite eventful for Los Angeles as the city prepares to host the FIFA World Cup in 2026, followed by the Olympics just 2 years later. Reporter Angelina Bagdasarian has more.
For Victor Gordo, president of the company that operates the famed Rose Bowl Stadium in Pasadena, the news that some matches of the 2026 FIFA World Cup will take place in LA was happy news.
Pasadena, I think, was proud to welcome the world to America's Stadium, the Rose Bowl. And once again, we'll be proud to, should we be fortunate enough to host a game or two or three or maybe more, we'll welcome the world with open arms and celebrate once again.
The Rose Bowl was built almost a century ago and is among the 20 biggest stadiums in the world. It served as a venue for 2 Summer Olympics in 1932 and 1984. Gordo is sure a stadium with such credentials is ready to host the FIFA World Cup anytime.
We recently completed a $182 million renovation of the stadium, and that has managed to launch the stadium hopefully into its next 100 years.
Not far away in Inglewood, another stadium is almost ready, a brand new forum that will seat about 70,000 people. It will open in 2020. Local authorities hope it will be one of the venues for both the World Cup and the 2028 Summer Olympics. But some residents believe the closed-off streets, additional traffic, and thousands of tourists that the Olympics and the World Cup will bring to LA are not good for the city.
The World Cup plays into this in very similar fashion. It creates the same conditions, the same kind of state of exception that the Olympics create. These kinds of mega events, create things like, tax breaks for the organizations that throw them on, as well as accelerating the militarization of police with the security.
Angelinos themselves are mostly optimistic.
I think it's great.
I think it'll bring more people here, and we don't need no more people here.
If it's come to U.S. and it's going to be, exciting.
I think that more people that come to LA, the better, and it'll be like a great city to host, a host city. I think we in LA have a lot of stadiums and a lot of good places to entertain all the visitors, so I think it's going to be great.
The 2026 World Cup will be jointly hosted by 16 cities in the US, Mexico and Canada, the first such tournament to take place in 3 countries. Anna Rice for Angelina Bagdasaryan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Well, from gospel singer on the rural islands of Santiago, Cape Verde, to the prestigious stage of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., 24-year-old Cape Verdean singer Elida Almeida is showing the world her determination, grace, and beautiful voice. She is the start of a U.S. tour that will also include Chicago and New York before dates in Canada. VOA Mayra Fernandez sat down with her here at the Kennedy Center to talk about how much has changed.
My life changed a lot, and now I am in my country. People know me, people stop me to take a photo, to talk to me, to give me advice, you know. I have a mom and pop in everywhere. Everybody says, you see, don't do this kind of thing because okay, thank you very much. So I love that way because you see that you have many friends, many people that care about you, and even tomorrow something happen with you, you know, you're gonna have a lot of people that is gonna take care, yeah, to support you. So everything's changed in my life, and now I miss my home a lot because I stay a lot of time out of my home, my family, and but I feel honored, and I feel very how do you say, I achieved something, and I got something, and it's nice. It's just nice.
Oh, I bet it is. Just one thing is that the first time that we spoke, you said that Africa was a very hard place to get into.
Yeah.
And now, in only 3 years, you have a slight different idea.
Yeah. Until now, I know already, I think 21 countries in Africa. So yeah, something's changed because of my tour, RFE tour, and I don't know, maybe people start to know me, and in the Lusophony countries, and I just arrived in one tour that we did it to 4 countries, to 4 festivals. So I saw that we have an industry in Africa.
You were also saying that there are amazing singers in Africa, and that you kind of feel special because of that. I don't want to say your words, I want you to tell me. Which singer would you like to be on the duet with?
Artists like Salif Keita, Youssou N'Dour, Oumou Sangaré, Angelique Kidjo. Wow, it's so many good people, good singer, and good performance. So that when I saw I already played in 2 festivals with Salif Keita, and I was just, wow, this guy is just an angel. Every time that I listen the new generation of Africa, and I saw the old school, like I said, Salif Keita and Youssou N'Dour, I feel so honored to be an African people, and to feel that I can make a part of this story, that I can make a part of this generation. I just have to work, you know, and keep going with all that generation, like Asia, like Rokia Traoré, like a lot of African people that I know. We just need to work and to be one, to be like Cesar Évora, to be like Miriam Makeba, you know? We can do that. Yes.
Well, that was VOA's Mayra Fernandez speaking with Cape Verdean singer Alida Almeida. Well, we leave you now with the music of Terrier, the all-female trio of singing cousins from Madagascar who recently performed for VOA's Music Time in Africa's Heather Maxwell. From all of us in Washington, have a great weekend. Hey.
La titike, tini tunta fanita tike. La titike, tini tunta fanita tike. La titike, tini tunta fanita tike. Hey yeah, kate hoke. 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 La hila beye kifumeswa, la hila beye fatie vut. Mana usare timana tikut, amizava we timatandinga. Hey yeah, kate hoke. 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 La titike, tini tunta fanita tike. Hey, hey yeah, kate hoke. 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 La hila beye tipumeswa, la hila beye fatie vut. Mana usare timana tikut, amisa vawe timatandi. Hey yeah, kate hoke. 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 Hey yeah, kate.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This expression sounds like a violent way of eating, but it's actually not always about eating.
Here is your Russian book, Anna. Thanks for letting me borrow it.
Oh, are you done with level 1 already?
Yeah, I finished last week, and I've already finished level 2.
Wow, you are really sinking your teeth into learning Russian.
Well,